Welcome back, everybody. The hashtag Fees Must Fall and its Aftermath is a book about the experiences of violence and well-being of Fees Must Fall student activists from a range of South African universities. It looks at the sacrifices the student generation made for the benefit of many to be able to access higher education and tells the students' experiences through over 100 photos and related narratives that contextualize the photos and explain their meaning and significance. Joining us now via Zoom to tell us more is author Thierry Luescher and co-author Angelina Wilson-Fadiji. A very good morning to you two. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Good morning, Simpiwe. Good morning to you.
It's an absolute pleasure having you join us to talk about this very, very important movement. I'm going to start with you, Thierry. Tell us more about the book and why you felt it important to highlight not only the Fees Must Fall protests, but also the aftermath.
Thank you so much for this question. The book is really the outcome of a process that we conducted as the Human Sciences Research Council, together with colleagues at other universities, including Dr. Angelina Wilson-Fadiji, in order to uncover what were some of the experiences that student activists had during Fees Must Fall and how these experiences affected their well-being, which is a precondition to learning. And through this process, we went to 5 different universities and spoke to a range of student leaders from the 2015-16 generation there in order to precisely discuss with them and help them to work through with this process, a process that is called photo voice, through their experiences and their reflections.
Right. Now, Angelina, in your observation, what was the intent of these protests and how did it change the student landscape, greater equity, democracy, and of course, most importantly, social justice?
Thank you. So for us, and based on our interactions with the students, one thing that really stood out was the fact that it was time to have their voices heard in a way that they felt weren't heard before.
Yes.
It was also time to change the status quo by any means necessary. Of course, we've seen that some of the impact not being so positive, and that's why we had to do this project. And some of the things that obviously changed. We do remember that in 2015 there was a response in terms of fees, and increasingly government have decided, okay, no, we put a cap on increase and things like that. So yes, there were these visible changes, but there were also changes like students getting to know that no, we can make our voices heard and expect some change. Of course, not as fast as we would love it, and maybe not to the level we would wish for it to happen, but there is an opportunity for, like you said, democracy and equity if we can and are ready to stand out there and make our voices heard.
Right. Now, Thierry, this collection was brought together by, a research method that you call rapid photo voice. How does it work?
So, photo voice combines the strength of visual research methods with the group setting, whereby you have, similar to a group interview or a focus group, you bring together a number of we would go to the university campus that included the University of the West.
All right, Thierry, I'm afraid the line is not the best. I'm going to ask my team to connect with you again from a much more clearer line. But Angelina, I also want to bring you into this conversation. I mean, this book documents the experiences of violence and the well-being of 35 former student activists from a range of South African universities. So what are some of their experiences in your view?
So like you would see in the themes that we highlighted in the book, one key experience is one of victimization, one of the experience of oppression, the experience of deprivation and institutional violence in different ways, where things and where the higher education space has been built in such a way that students do not feel that they have an equal access to the resources that are supposed to be readily available for them. Some of their experiences are one that have have led to a collective memory of pain that they carry with them through the years. But also interesting, and that's where this book comes in, is certain experiences of well-being, very little pocket experiences of well-being that came through solidarity, cohesion, social support, being able to identify ways of making meaning out of difficult experiences, being able to find a sense of purpose, saying that we're pursuing this because we know that in future generations to come, what we have been deprived of wouldn't be the same because of the struggles and what we're going through today. And so some of these things really spoke to us and were very interesting to put down as what students went through during these student protests, through these student movement experiences.
And I suppose, Angelina, one standout factor is that the students, in as much as they were calling for free education, free higher education, that is, but it was more about marrying the students' plights. And it was a call for political leadership to account and, of course, be responsive to their plight. So do you think that the students were successful in that regard?
I wish we had one of them on the panel. I would say it's a yes and a no. Yes, because certain demands were met. Most institutions have become quite sensitive to student demands and would always want to talk. When students bring up, okay, this is what we think needs to happen. But in the end, not everything changes. So that's why it's still a no. And maybe there's a compromise, or they need to meet halfway, or it takes them, maybe getting to the streets or the protests, getting a bit violent to get things to change. So there is still a no, but the yes comes from the fact that there are instances where changes have been made, and generally the higher education space, the student voice is quite critical right now within this space. It's really not overlooked anymore as a result of these movements.
Right. Now, Thierry, I hope that I have you back on the line. And if so, just take us through what your findings have been on the contributions of the study with respect to creating awareness of the violence that accompanied students' protests and their advocacy for greater political responsiveness.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me better now.
Yes, I can hear you clearly now. Yeah, go ahead.
Great. In terms of creating awareness, the best gauge that we have to see that is at the moment how we have been interacting on the university campuses with university leadership as well as with colleagues from student affairs, who are, of course, responsible for things like student leadership development, who are responsible for student governance, and oftentimes are standing halfway in the crossfire as well when there is a protest, and have to pick up the pieces. They know the students usually very closely that are involved in student governance, and some of them who are involved then as protest leaders, and they see what is happening to those students, how they are affected. First, of course, by the concerns that they are raising, and then eventually through the protesting and violence itself and the aftermath thereof, and then often have to work through counseling or other kinds of mechanisms to assist those student leaders to actually get back into a sense of well-being. What I can say about the impact there is that there have not been enough conversations on the university campuses. We were, for example, at the University of KwaZulu-Natal last year in August, and we held a workshop with student affairs colleagues from all the colleges around a manual that we produced as part of this process as well on restoring well-being after protests. And it was heartbreaking to see how many colleagues from student affairs themselves actually have not even had the opportunity on campuses to really work through their own trauma, not even talking about the trauma of the student leaders, but they themselves not having had opportunities for open conversations among colleagues to talk about their experiences. And so having the opportunity
I'm afraid we are out of time, Thierry, but thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.
And many thanks to you as well, Angelina, for being part of this conversation. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imperial.
It's a pleasure.
Have a
Well, that
good
was
one.
authors of The Fees Must Fall and its Aftermath book, Thierry Luescher and Angelina Wilson-Fadiji.